Hello, welcome to Unbelievable Tales.
Who shares a campfire with a stranger during a storm, not knowing she's running from millions? Nathan Hale didn't ask questions when he offered shelter to a soaked woman who stumbled into his campsite one rainy night. He was focused on keeping his daughter safe, not uncovering secrets. But Celeste Morgan wasn't just lost, she was a billionaire heiress escaping the life everyone expected her to live. And the kindness of a poor single dad would not only change her path, but rewrite all three of their lives in the most unexpected way. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. The storm rolled in without warning. Thick clouds strangled the last bits of daylight as Nathan tightened the ropes on the tarp overhead, rain already beginning to spit through the leaves. The camp was simple: one tent, one fire pit, and a makeshift table built from 2 crates and a weather-warped plank. He didn't need more. Just enough to keep his daughter warm, fed, and safe. "Dad," came the small voice behind him, "the marshmallows are getting wet." He turned to see Lila clutching the bag like a lifeline, her hoodie pulled tight around her face. Stray locks of chestnut hair had slipped free, curling from the humidity. Her big brown eyes blinked up at him as if he held the power to fix anything. "We'll dry them by the fire," Nathan said with a tired smile, ruffling her damp hair. He didn't say it out loud, but the fire was nearly out. Damp wood and too much wind. And the last of the lighter fluid was gone. He could make it work, he always did, but tonight everything felt heavier. Maybe it was the storm. Maybe it was the ache in his lower back from sleeping on uneven ground for the 3rd week in a row. Or maybe it was the quiet question Lila had asked the night before when she thought he was asleep. "Do you think we'll ever have a real home again?" He didn't answer then. He didn't have one. The wind picked up, and with it, the sound of something or someone moving through the trees. Nathan froze. His eyes scanned the shadows, hand instinctively reaching for the old flashlight near the tarp's edge. Animals made noise. But this was slower. Hesitant. Human. And then she appeared. A figure stepped into the flickering ring of light from their fire. Her coat was soaked through, clinging to her like a second skin. Her hair, long and dark, was plastered to her face in wet strands. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. One trembling hand gripped the strap of a leather shoulder bag. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, her voice edged with panic. "I didn't mean to scare you." Nathan stepped slightly in front of Lila. "Are you lost?" The woman gave a small nod, blinking against the rain. "My car died. The road washed out. And my phone." She didn't finish. She just looked down like she wasn't sure if any of it mattered. Lila peeked around her dad's side, wide-eyed. "Are you a ghost?" The woman let out a weak laugh. "Not yet." Nathan assessed her silently. Her clothes screamed wealth, nothing about her was made for camping, much less surviving a storm. And yet here she was, alone, wet, and shivering in the middle of nowhere. "Sit down," he said, nodding to the edge of the crate bench. "You're soaked through. I don't want to be a burden." Lila was already digging through their supply box. "We have a blanket. It's fuzzy." That settled it. The woman sat and Nathan handed her the blanket. Her fingers brushed his for a split second, cold and soft, like porcelain left in the rain. "I'm Nathan," he said after a pause. "That's my daughter, Lila." She hesitated, then said Celeste. "No last name." Just like that. He didn't press. They huddled under the tarp as the rain came harder, drumming against the nylon like a warning. Nathan managed to coax the fire back to life with patience and 2 pages torn from an old notebook. Lila handed Celeste a marshmallow on a stick. "They're better when they're golden, not burnt," she informed her. Celeste smiled. It was faint, like her face didn't quite remember how to do it. Nathan watched her out of the corner of his eye. The way she jumped slightly at thunder. How her gaze lingered on Lila like it hurt. And how she kept that bag of hers clutched tight, even when her hands were shaking. They didn't talk much after that. Not until Lila fell asleep curled between 2 sleeping bags. Celeste spoke softly. "You're brave." "I'm a dad," Nathan replied. She nodded, still brave. He glanced at her, waiting for the real story to crack through. But it didn't. Instead, she said, "Thank you for not turning me away." "I've been turned away before," he said. "I don't like the feeling." They sat in silence after that, save for the occasional snap of the fire. Celeste eventually drifted off, her head tilted slightly, lips parted in sleep. Nathan stayed awake, watching the flames. Something about her didn't sit right. Not in a dangerous way, but in the way people who are running from something don't always show it with words. He didn't know what she was hiding, but he had a feeling the storm had only just begun. The morning came slowly, with sunlight threading through mist and the scent of damp pine clinging to everything. Nathan was already up, crouched near the fire pit, trying to coax another reluctant flame into life. A small kettle hissed quietly beside him, steam curling upward like smoke signals into the trees. Celeste stirred beneath the blanket, blinking against the brightness. Her eyes found Lila first, still asleep, one hand curled beneath her cheek, the other wrapped protectively around a stuffed raccoon toy. Then she looked at Nathan, who nodded at her but said nothing. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself and sat up slowly, groaning under her breath. Her coat was hanging from a low branch, still wet from the night before. "You slept?" he asked eventually. "Eventually," she replied. "I forgot what crickets sound like." He poured her a small cup of tea and handed it over. She took it gratefully, the ceramic warm against her palms. "Thanks." They sat in quiet for a while, the kind that wasn't awkward, just space, breathing, waiting. Nathan broke it. "So, where were you headed?" Celeste stared into her tea like it held answers. "Nowhere. Nowhere's a long way from here." She smiled faintly. "Then I guess I made good time." He didn't press, just took another sip from his mug and watched the fire grow stronger. When Lila finally woke, the dynamic shifted. She bounded towards Celeste with a grin that didn't seem to remember they'd just met. "I saved you a cereal bar, the peanut butter kind. It's my favorite." Celeste blinked, surprised. "You didn't have to." "She likes you," Nathan said simply. "She doesn't share unless she means it." They ate together cereal bars, instant oatmeal, and the last of the dried apples. Celeste ate slowly, with care, as if savoring something she hadn't had in years. Lila chattered on about the chipmunk that lived behind their tent and how Nathan once burned pancakes so badly the forest smelled like toast for hours. Celeste laughed. It was fuller this time. Real. After breakfast, she helped wash the mugs in the creek. Nathan watched her kneel beside the cold stream, sleeves rolled up, hair falling over her eyes. She didn't flinch at the chill. She didn't complain about the mud. She looked grounded. When she stood and handed him the last clean cup, he asked, "So where'd you actually come from?" She hesitated. "New York, but not like the part you see in movies." He raised an eyebrow. She sighed. "Okay, maybe exactly like that. Upper floors, meetings, dresses I didn't choose, people I didn't like. And you ran. Not from a crime, if that's what you're asking." "I wasn't." She looked at him then, direct. "I ran from my life, or what they told me was supposed to be my life." Nathan didn't nod or judge. He just tossed a stick into the fire. Sometimes not choosing is still a choice. Celeste didn't answer, but something in her eyes flickered, recognition maybe, or relief. That afternoon, they walked the trail behind the camp. Nathan knew it well, with its winding switchbacks and moss-covered stones. Lila held Celeste's hand the entire way, chatting endlessly about fairy rings and tree spirits. At one point, Celeste stopped and stared at a small clearing bathed in filtered light. It's quiet here. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty. Just honest. Nathan watched her take it in like she was seeing something she hadn't allowed herself to want. That evening, they roasted the last marshmallows. The fire danced brighter this time. Lila curled up early, worn out from the hike, and Nathan handed Celeste a hoodie from his crate of clothes. She pulled it on gratefully, sleeves falling past her wrists. "You're not what I expected," she said, settling beside him. "What did you expect? A lecture? Or pity? Or questions I didn't want to answer?" Nathan poked the fire with a stick. "I don't do pity. I do survival. And questions, they only work when you're ready to answer them." She was quiet for a long time. Then finally she said, "They wanted me to marry someone. Not someone I loved. Just someone safe, connected, media-friendly. And I said no. And ran. And ran," she echoed. He didn't ask more. He just handed her another marshmallow. But that night, as she lay under the tarp with rain threatening again in the distance, Celeste whispered into the dark, "Do you think people like me can start over?" Nathan didn't hesitate. "Only way to find out is to stay." The third morning started colder. Nathan woke to the sound of rustling canvas and the soft snore of his daughter curled in her sleeping bag. Celeste was already awake, sitting on a log beside the ashes of last night's fire, hoodie pulled over her head, arms wrapped around herself. She stared into the woods as if searching for something only she could see. He poured hot water into a tin mug and handed it to her without a word. Her fingers brushed his again. This time, he didn't pull back. "I dreamed," she said after a moment. "There was a ballroom. Gold walls, chandeliers, people in masks. But no one saw me. I was shouting, waving, but they danced around me like I was invisible." Nathan sat beside her. "That's not a dream. That's a memory." She didn't laugh, but she didn't argue either. Lila bounced awake soon after, dragging her stuffed raccoon and blanket with her. She didn't hesitate before climbing into Celeste's lap like it was the most natural place to be. "Did you dream?" Celeste asked gently, brushing hair from the girl's forehead. Lila nodded. "You were there. And we had pancakes. Real ones." "We'll put that on the list," Celeste said with a smile. That day they walked farther. Past the stream, up the ridge trail that led to an old fire watch post no longer in use. Nathan carried the backpack. Celeste carried Lila when her legs got tired. They stopped at the top to catch their breath, eat peanut butter crackers, and look at the world below. It stretched wide and wild. Trees in every direction. No glass towers. No voices over speakerphones. Just the wind and the creak of trees shifting. "This is the first time I've been this high without a window between me and the view," Celeste whispered. Nathan looked at her. She wasn't out of place anymore. She wasn't the drenched stranger from 3 nights ago. She was becoming part of something. At dusk, while Lila sketched a chipmunk in the dirt with a stick, Celeste leaned close and said, "You're a good father." "I try." "No. I mean it. You make her feel safe. Like nothing out there could touch her." He didn't answer right away. "That's the job. Even when it's hard." "Was it always just you two?" Nathan nodded. "Lila's mom left when she was 2. Didn't want this life. I didn't want to give her any other kind." "She left you to figure it out?" "She left, period. We figured it out ourselves." Celeste glanced toward the tent where Lila hummed softly, making up a song about raccoons and rainbows. "You did a good job." He shrugged. "Some days I'm not sure she isn't raising me." That night, they sat by the fire again. But just as Nathan was reaching for the kettle, he heard it, an engine. Not the rumble of an ATV or a ranger's truck. This was something smoother. Sleeker. The wrong kind of sound for these woods. A car. Celeste's back went stiff. Nathan saw her grip tighten on her knees. Then headlights sliced through the trees. A black SUV, polished and silent, rolled into the outer ring of camp. The engine cut. The door didn't open. Just a window lowering. A man in a gray suit leaned across the passenger seat. "Ms. Morgan," he said calmly. "Thank God we found you." Nathan didn't understand. The name didn't register, but Celeste's silence did. "You've got a press conference in 24 hours, the man continued. "The board is panicking. Your fiancé. He's not my fiancé. You didn't say that when you vanished." "I wasn't required to," she snapped. Nathan stood, suddenly ice cold. "Wait, Morgan? Celeste Morgan?" Celeste turned to him, eyes pleading. "Nathan, you're her. The Morgan Foundation. Manhattan. The gala scandal." Celeste said nothing. "You lied." "I didn't. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing." Lila appeared from behind the tent, sleepy and confused. "Why is there a car?" "Inside, Lila," Nathan said quietly. "Please." Celeste moved toward her, but Nathan stepped in between. Not roughly, but with finality. The man in the car leaned out again. "Shall I call your mother, Ms. Morgan?" "I'm not going with you." "The family is preparing a statement. They're desperate to know you're alive." "I'm not their story anymore." Nathan exhaled hard, running a hand down his face. "So what were we?" "You're Dieter." "No," she said quickly. "You were real. This is the only real thing I've had in months." He didn't answer. The man in the SUV gave up and rolled the window back up. The car lingered another 5 minutes. Then, without a word, it reversed down the trail, swallowed by the trees and fog. Silence fell. Celeste turned back to Nathan, tears glimmering. "I didn't come here to lie. I came because I couldn't breathe. And now what? I don't know. You should figure it out," he said, and walked away. That night, she stayed near the edge of camp. He didn't speak to her. Lila said nothing either. And for the first time since she arrived, Celeste cried. Not pretty tears, not the controlled, dignified kind, but raw sobs into her borrowed blanket alone under the stars. The morning came brittle and quiet. Celeste was gone. Nathan noticed it before he even opened his eyes. The air near the fire pit felt emptier. The hoodie was neatly folded on the crate, and beside it a small stone, the one Lila had given her. The lucky rock. It sat there like a whisper of what had been. He stared at it a long time. Lila stood beside him in bare feet, hair tangled, eyes wide. "Is she coming back?" she asked. Nathan crouched slowly and wrapped his arms around her. "I don't know." But he wanted to say yes. He wanted to believe it so badly that his chest hurt from holding it in. They went about their day, but it wasn't the same. The air held her absence like smoke from a fire long burned out. Lila didn't ask questions after that. She just stuck closer to him than usual. More quiet, more watchful. Nathan tried to keep things steady. They made soup from a can, collected firewood, cleaned out the cooler. But every shadow past the trees made him look twice. And every snap of a twig brought a flicker of hope that never lasted more than a second. 3 days passed. Then 4. Then a full week. Nathan told himself it didn't matter. She was never supposed to stay. She belonged to a world with private jets and curated statements. A world where someone like him was just a passing kindness. A breath between storms. But when he caught Lila staring at the edge of the trail that night, he knew it wasn't over. Not really. Not for either of them. A letter came on the 8th day. Folded in half, slipped under the tin flap at the main campground office. Addressed in clean handwriting to Nathan and Lila Hale. No return address. Just a logo in the corner, the Fireside Project, and one sentence beneath it, handwritten in smaller, slanted ink. Tell Lila I still have her lucky rock. Nathan opened the letter slowly. Inside was a note, brief and trembling at the edges. Nathan, I didn't know you could miss something you only had for a few days. You and Lila gave me something I didn't know I needed: peace. I've made mistakes, and I'm trying to fix them. If you ever want to find me, I won't be hiding anymore. Celeste. No promises. No fairy tale. Just the truth. He folded the letter and placed it inside the box where they kept dry cereal and matches. Every time he reached in, he would see it. And remember what it meant. More time passed. The forest bloomed into late spring. Nathan got a few days of work fixing fences down the road. Lila drew pictures in the dirt with sticks. One of them clearly showed 3 people around a fire. Then one evening, just as the sky turned the color of bruised peaches and lavender, there was a sound. Not tires this time. Footsteps. Nathan turned slowly. She was there. Hair pulled back in a braid that had started to unravel. Hoodie sleeves pushed up. Those same ruined boots still caked with dried mud. But her face was calm. No makeup. No masks. Just her. "I brought cereal," she said softly. "The good kind. With marshmallows." Lila screamed with joy and ran to her before Nathan could speak. She flung herself into Celeste's arms and Celeste dropped to her knees, holding the girl like a lifeline. "I missed you," Lila whispered. "I missed you too." Nathan didn't move. Just watched. When Celeste finally looked up at him, her eyes were clear but wet. "I told them," she said. "My family. The press. Everyone. I told them the truth." "What truth?" "That I'm done pretending." He stepped toward her slowly. "Why come back?" "Because the only place I've ever felt like a person was here. With you. With her. No cameras? No one knows I'm here but you." "And what happens tomorrow?" "I stay," she said. "If you'll let me." Nathan glanced at Lila, who nodded solemnly like she'd already decided. He looked back at Celeste and exhaled. "We still only have oatmeal." Celeste smiled, eyes shining. "I brought milk too." That night, they didn't sleep in separate tarps. They unrolled all 3 sleeping bags in one big tent, an old canvas one Celeste brought with her, faded and patched. It smelled like cedar and hope. Lila snored between them. And under the blanket, Celeste whispered, "I'm scared." Nathan turned his hand and found hers. "Me too. But I'm still here," she added. "I know." He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. Weeks passed and the forest shifted into the fullness of summer. Celeste didn't leave. Not after a day or a week or even when the foundation called twice asking her to attend a gala in her honor. She declined both times with a simple statement. "I'm building something else now." She meant it. The new tent was a temporary fix, but it never felt like a stopgap. It was cozy. The kind of cozy you make when 3 people choose to wake up near each other day after day. The kind of cozy that made Lila start drawing hearts around the stick figure labeled Cell without being asked. They spent their days walking trails, repairing old gear, and foraging wild berries with a guidebook Celeste bought online. She never acted like a guest anymore. She was just there. Sweeping leaves, learning to split kindling, tying her hair in messy buns while helping Nathan fix the tarp. She laughed more. She cursed at splinters. She learned to toast marshmallows without setting them on fire. She was real. Not the magazine version. Not the girl from the articles. Just Celeste. Nathan saw the shift before she did. The way her shoulders stayed lower, the way she didn't flinch when the wind picked up, the way she reached for Lila's hand without thinking. And one morning, over a breakfast of warm cereal and laughter, she said it. "I want to stay. Really stay." He paused. "What does that look like for you?" "Less leather handbags. More creek water. Less press releases. More quiet. And us." She smiled. "You're not quiet. But I like that part." 3 weeks later, she bought a plot of land just outside the forest, small, sloped, shaded by trees. Not enough for a mansion. More than enough for a home. It had an old stone fireplace and a porch that needed rebuilding. Nathan rebuilt the porch. Celeste planted lavender. Lila made a sign and nailed it to the gate, Camp Marshmallow. They kept the name. At night, they still sat by the fire. No storms now. No secrets. Just crickets and stars and the smell of smoke on their sleeves. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they didn't have to. One evening, after Lila had fallen asleep with a book still open on her chest, Celeste leaned her head against Nathan's shoulder and whispered, "She still asks if I'll stay forever." "What do you tell her?" "That I already did." Nathan smiled and kissed her temple. She's smarter than both of us. Celeste laughed, soft and full. Maybe she's the one who brought us together. She always did like collecting lost things. Celeste looked up. You think I was lost? I think you were searching. But maybe not for an exit. She held up her hand. The small rock, Lila's lucky rock, still rested in her palm, smooth and worn from being held too often. I never stopped carrying it. I know. Later, they climbed into the hammock strung between two trees and lay side by side, the forest breathing quietly around them. Nathan traced small circles on her wrist. She closed her eyes and let the stillness soak in. I thought I needed to vanish to find peace, she said. But I think I just needed a reason to stay. You found it. She looked at him. At the porch. The tent turned home. The room where Lila's art lined the walls in crayon and paper stars. I think I built it. And when Nathan kissed her, slow and certain like no one was watching, it wasn't a grand gesture. It was an answer. The next morning, Lila ran into their room holding a half-finished drawing and said, "Look, it's us. Stick figures again. 3 of them this time, with a fire in the middle and hearts floating above." Nathan squinted. Where's Harold? Lila pointed to the bush. He's hiding, obviously. Celeste grinned and pulled Lila onto the bed between them. And Nathan, who had once thought he'd spend every day surviving, realized that sometimes, without warning, you stop surviving and start living. Not because you planned it, but because someone knocks on your world during a storm and decides to stay. Because someone offers a marshmallow and you don't say no. Because love doesn't always arrive with flowers and perfect timing. Sometimes it shows up dripping wet, holding nothing but a broken phone and a name she barely remembers how to say out loud. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you share the last marshmallow and begin forever.
Bye, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.